Hi, we are
Rufino
Rufino
and
and Elena.
Elena. You will be probably wondering what's LGTBIpol, what we do and why we do it. We consider ourselves a law enforcement for diversity, all types of police corps all over Spain, together for one purpose.
We are an independent police association composed by different police services of Spain, very sensitive to hate crimes that threaten diversity, especially in the area of LGBTQ plus community. Overall aim to reduce the risk that victims of hate crimes because of sexual orientation or gender identity manage to be doubly victimized or they are not properly attended.
Our specific goals are the following ones: to increase our police efficiency in the management of diversity, to collaborate with relevant, pertinent and concerned organizations, to train and to arouse in the police area, to train and to arouse in other relevant and related areas, to help deal with queries that may arise at different police stations and units, to provide accompaniment to victims during the whole process from the complaint report. Are you ready for all what we're going to tell you? Pay attention. Introduction to diversity and the importance of its knowledge by police corps. There is still lack of knowledge in the matter of diversity. Very often, ignorance proves to be insensitive, cold and harmful, so it becomes our duty as law enforcement to learn about and raise diversity awareness. Ignorance on the part of law enforcement can cause a secondary victimization. That's why some units call on specialists to support them during the investigations. How can the police protect a society that don't know? So, how do we define diversity? The world is full of diversity. The world is also full of colors. In every color we have infinite gradations. How can we ignore diversity? It means we are ignoring the whole world. As you can see, every copy or specimen of every species is different, as well as our fingerprints. So why we still consider to be different a not normal thing? What we all have in common is that we're different. That's why everybody shall be equal before the law. People that are not used to deal with LGBTQ diversity unfortunately often confuse these concepts. They normally mix gender with biological sex or sexual orientation. But we have the physical characteristics, which are the ones we are born with. So we are talking about biological sex. Then there is gender, which is the identity we have or feel. And the sexual orientation, that is everything about love and desire. Actually, these groups have nothing to do with each other. So as classification, for biological sex we have male, female, intersexual. Then, for gender identity group, we have man, woman, and then transgender, transsexual, and many more. Then we have sexual orientation. You see, homosexual means gay and lesbian. Then we have bisexual, pansexual, and many more. In this society, everyone needs names for everything in order to fit. But sometimes it turns to be impossible to classify everything. We just hope in the future nobody needs anything of this to fit in the world. It will mean that we will be just persons, no matter the difference. Sex is more diverse than we think. These are the two most of the people know. But they are not the only ones on earth. Let's see what happens when we are able to only see these. No one really identifies he or herself with these stereotypes. Oh, what do you see? There are 3, not 2. Nobody probably told you about this before. Intersexuality is the unknown biological sex. The European Union Council seeks to remove the taboos from the social discourse on intersexuality and to challenge prevailing stereotypes. This approach exists alongside the legal concept of sex discrimination, which refers directly to a difference in treatment on the basis of gender. Transgender people come from all walks of life. They are dads, moms, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, co-workers, neighbors, children, all grandparents. A diverse community representing all racial and ethnic backgrounds as well as faith backgrounds. The word transgender or trans is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity is different from the sex assigned at birth. People who would fit under this definition have existed in every culture throughout recorded history. Some transgender people identify as male or female, and some identify as genderqueer, non-binary, agender, or somewhere else on or outside of the spectrum of what we understand gender to be. Some of them take hormones and have surgery as part of transition, and some don't. Some choose to openly identify as transgender, while others simply identify as men or women. They are the most misunderstood and punished due to the lack of the knowledge around them. Genderqueer is actually an umbrella term, harboring many different non-binary gender conceptions. As you can see, in between, at every point in time, there are infinite possibilities.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
So, a man loving a woman or a woman loving a man is a straight one. A woman loving another woman is a lesbian. A man loving another man is a gay. In some countries, gay is also for women, for lesbian. Bisexual, somebody that can love a woman and a man. Pansexual, somebody that can love a transsexual, a genderqueer person. These people do not care about gender. Please press pause and let's discuss about the following question. How do you play your gender role? Think about it. Take a look at this. Are you trying to be like that man or that woman? Really? Think about it. What's the point? Just be yourself. This is what you have to be. Remember this. We are all responsible for discriminatory behavior and bias attached to every person by virtue simple of the fact of being human. But they must not harm the others. When bias comes into your mind, just be aware not to behave prejudiced. As the law enforcement, we have a code of police ethics. It says, the police must be open for the new social realities to adapt and to adjust or keep up to date. And it also says, in the interactions, it is established to comply with the principle of equal treatment and non-discrimination. We understand that there is still some fear when it comes to approach the police to ask for help. LGBTQ people and other groups hardly come to report hate crimes. It seems that the past is not so easy to erase or to overcome. That's why we are working on that, to offer quality care. The protection of the free exercise of human rights and freedoms must be our constant guide. What is a hate crime? Any criminal offense, including offenses against persons or property, where the victim premises or target of the offense are selected because of their real or perceived connection, attachment, affiliation, support, or membership with a group. Hate speech, a communication that carries no meaning other than the expression of hatred for some group, especially in circumstances in which the communication is likely to provoke violence. It is an incitement to hatred primarily against a group of persons defined in terms of race, ethnicity, national origin, gender, religion, sexual orientation, and the like. Hate speech can be any form of expression regarded as offensive to racial, ethnic, and religious groups and other discrete minorities, or to women. Discriminatory violence. Recently, the European Forum for Urban Security presented the concept of discriminatory violence as a definition for acts motivated by hatred, intolerance, or prejudice. This definition includes the interconnections of this type of acts, which also foster broader forms of discrimination such as marginalization, social exclusion, and ostracism, with social processes of power building and social orders, avoiding to limit the concept to criminal acts, fulfilling two of the term crime, and by avoiding the term hate, even at the nominative level, emphasizing discriminatory and hostile motivations. Discriminatory violence shall mean any violent incident that the victim, a witness, or any other person perceives to be motivated by prejudice, intolerance, hatred, and which may or may not constitute a criminal offense under the current penal code.
Unlawful discrimination and types. If a person has been treated unfairly because of whom it is, who someone think it is, or someone this person is with. It's unlawful discrimination if someone is treated differently and worse because of a protected characteristic. Not all unfair treatment is unlawful discrimination under the Spanish Penal Code. It's only if someone is treated differently because of one of these protected characteristics. And it doesn't matter if the person treated someone differently didn't mean to discriminate against it, or if they didn't know they were discriminating. Protected characteristics. Belong to a group. Racism. Antisemitism or ideology. Religion or belief. Family situation. Belong to an ethnic group, race or nation. National origin. Sex. Sexual orientation or identity. Gender. Illness. Disability. Direct discrimination. Direct discrimination is when you are treated differently and worse than someone else for certain reasons and can be because of the protected characteristic mentioned above. Less favorable treatment means you've been treated differently to someone else who doesn't have the same protected characteristic as you, and you're worse off because of it. Racial segregation, if it's deliberate, is always considered to be less favorable treatment. To show direct discrimination, you need to compare your treatment with the treatment of someone else who doesn't have the same protected characteristic as you. Example of direct discrimination. You are an Irish traveler. Irish travelers are considered to be part of an ethnic group and so share the protected characteristic of race. You want to have your wedding at your local hotel, but the manager tells you the hotel is fully booked for the next few months. As you leave, you hear the same manager tell another couple who are not Irish travelers that the hotel is free for their wedding 2 weeks from now. If someone treats you differently because of whom they think you are, it's also direct discrimination. This is called direct discrimination by perception. Example: you are heterosexual and a state agent refused to let you a flat because he thinks you are gay. This is direct discrimination by perception because of sexual orientation, which is a protected characteristic under the Spanish Penal Code. It's also direct discrimination if someone treats you differently because of someone you are with or someone you know. This could be a parent, child, partner, or friend. This is called direct discrimination by association. Example: your employer disciplines you because you have to take time off to care for your disabled child. He has not disciplined other workers who have had similar amounts of time off work. This is direct discrimination by association because of the protected characteristic of disability. Important: when is it lawful to treat someone less favorably? Sometimes it's not direct discrimination if someone treats you differently because of age. The law says it's possible to justify direct age discrimination if there is a good enough reason for treating you differently. Example: your GP practice only provides free flu jabs to people over 65. This is because older people are more vulnerable to the flu and are more likely to be seriously ill if they get the virus. This is a good enough reason for treating people differently based on age. Indirect discrimination: when someone is treated in the same way as everybody else, but it has a different and worse effect on them because of whom they are. Indirect discrimination is when there is a policy, practice, or rule which applies to everybody in the same way. It places people who share the protected characteristic of someone at disadvantage. It places someone personally at a disadvantage. The person applying the policy, practice, or rule can't show there is a good enough reason for it. A practice, policy, or rule can be formal or informal. It can be a one-off decision or a decision to do something in the future. It includes things like arrangement, criteria, condition, qualification, or provisions. What is important is that it applies to everyone in the same way, which is neutral. If something only applies to some people who all have the same protected characteristic, it could be direct discrimination. The practice, policy, or rule applies to a certain group of people in the same way, regardless of who they are. Example: you could have a rule that all employees in a shop must work on Saturdays. If you are Jewish and observe the Sabbath, you can't work on Saturdays. It doesn't matter that there aren't any other Jewish people who work in the same shop. It can still be indirect discrimination if something would normally disadvantage people sharing these characteristics. When it's lawful, it's not indirect discrimination if the person applying the practice, policy, or rule can show there is a good enough reason for it. This is known as objective justification.
Cyberhate is any use of electronic communications technology to spread anti-Semitic, racist, bigoted, extremist, or terrorist messages or information. These electronic communication technologies include the Internet, websites, social networking sites, user-generated content, dating sites, blogs, online games, instant messages, and email, as well as other computer and cell phone-based information technologies, such as text messages and mobile phones. Cyberbullying is related to, but is different from cyberhate. In a school context, cyberbullying means any electronic communication including, but not limited to, one shown to be motivated by students' actual or perceived race, color, religion, national origin, ancestry or ethnicity, sexual orientation, physical, mental, emotional, or learning disability, gender, gender identity and expression, or other distinguishing personal characteristic, or based on association with any person identified above, when the written, verbal, or physical act or electronic communication is intended to physically harm a student or damage the student's property, or substantially interfere with the student's educational opportunities, or be so severe, persistent, or pervasive that it creates an intimidating or threatening educational environment, or substantially disrupt the orderly operation of the school. Homophobia encompasses a range of negative attitudes and feelings toward homosexuality or people who are identified or perceived as being lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and any other else. Everybody must know the problem is not being different. The problem is being treated differently. Discriminatory conducts constitute a direct attack against principle of freedom, respect, dignity, and human rights. There is a very important topic to be taken on when it comes to educational environment, homo or transphobia within bullying. At this age, a person is still building personality, and they do it based around what they are and what they identify with. For being themselves, they are attacked, which produces a sensation of vulnerability and negation of oneself, leading to failure at school, self-rejection, and even suicidal thoughts, occasionally reaching this level. At the police stations, we can make a friendly atmosphere. How? Maybe painting any wall with some colors, 'cause we know when the building is old, it often looks a little bit gray and kind of creepy. We can also launch a campaign to vulnerable groups not to fear police officers and to make them feel safe and protected in the police areas. In addition, we can give some leaflets with information about their rights. How do we increase our police efficiency in this direction? Paying more attention to diversity, learning and teaching how to identify cases of hate crime, creating awareness on the situation and rights of these victims. The development of training resources and tools for operational staff facilitates enhanced service delivery and engagement with vulnerable communities. We must also guarantee the greatest diffusion of the protocol, as well as the incorporation into training plans those aspects that are developed in the same one. To provide accompaniment to victims during the whole process from the complaint or the report is also a very, very, very important aspect of our duty. What else would you do to improve attention to diversity in relation to hate crimes? Bye-bye. Thank you very much for your attention.